Hi, this is the RealKC channel and we will be introducing to you all the interesting New York Times best-selling books. If you like what we are doing, do not forget to hit the subscribe button and like button below and turn on the little alert bell. Number 1 New York Times bestseller. His Truth is Marching On, John Lewis and the Power of Hope. By Jon Meacham. The Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer creates a portrait of Representative John Lewis, the late civil rights leader and congressman for Georgia's 5th Congressional District. His Truth is Marching On, John Lewis and the Power of Hope. This book is an intimate and revealing portrait of civil rights icon and longtime U.S. Congressman John Lewis, linking his life to the painful quest for justice in America from the 1950s to the present. So who is John Lewis? John Robert Lewis, February 21, 1940 to July 17, 2020, was an American statesman and civil rights leader who served in the United States House of Representatives for Georgia's 5th Congressional District from 1987 until his death in 2020. He was the chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, from 1963 to 1966. John Robert Lewis was born on February 21, 1940 just outside Troy, Alabama, the third of 10 children of Willie Mae and Eddie Lewis. His parents were sharecroppers in rural Pike County, Alabama. From an early age, Lewis learned that nonviolence was not only a tactic but a philosophy, a biblical imperative, and a transforming reality. As a boy, Lewis aspired to be a preacher. At the age of 4, Lewis, ambitious to become a minister, practiced by preaching to his family's chickens. When his mother cooked one of the chickens, the boy refused to eat it. His first act, he wryly recalled, of nonviolent protest. Integral to Lewis's commitment to bettering the nation was his faith in humanity and in God, and an unshakable belief in the power of hope. As a young child, Lewis had little interaction with white people. In fact, by the time he was 6, Lewis had seen only 2 white people in his life. As he grew older, he began taking trips into town with his family, where he experienced racism and segregation, such as at the public library in Troy. Lewis had relatives who lived in northern cities, and he learned from them that the North had integrated schools, buses, and businesses. When Lewis was 11, an uncle took him to Buffalo, New York, making him more acutely aware of Troy's segregation. In 1955, Lewis first heard Martin Luther King Jr. on the radio, and he closely followed King's Montgomery bus boycott later that year. At age 15, Lewis preached his first public sermon. Lewis met Rosa Parks when he was 17, and met King for the first time when he was 18. After writing to King about being denied admission to Troy University in Alabama, Lewis was invited to a meeting. King, who referred to Lewis as the boy from Troy, discussed suing the university for discrimination, but he warned Lewis that doing so could endanger his family in Troy. After discussing it with his parents, Lewis decided to proceed with his education at a small, historically black college in Tennessee. Lewis graduated from the American Baptist Theological Seminary in Nashville, Tennessee, and was ordained as a Baptist minister. He then received a bachelor's degree in religion and philosophy from Fisk University. He was a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. While a student, Lewis was invited to attend nonviolence workshops held at Clark Memorial United Methodist Church. There, Lewis and other students became dedicated adherents to the discipline and philosophy of nonviolence, which he practiced for the rest of his life. He fulfilled many key roles in the civil rights movement and its actions to end legalized racial segregation in the United States. Lewis was one of the Big Six leaders of groups who organized the 1963 March on Washington. In 1965, Lewis led the first of 3 Selma to Montgomery marches across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. In an incident which became known as Bloody Sunday, state troopers and police attacked the marchers, including Lewis. Drawing on decades of wide-ranging interviews with Lewis, Jon Meacham writes of how this great-grandson of a slave and son of an Alabama tenant farmer was inspired by the Bible and his teachers in nonviolence, and put his life on the line in the service of what Abraham Lincoln called the better angels of our nature. A member of the Democratic Party. Lewis was first elected to Congress in 1986 and served 17 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives. He was a leader of the Democratic Party in the U.S. House of Representatives, serving from 1991 as a Chief Deputy Whip and from 2003 as Senior Chief Deputy Whip. Lewis received many honorary degrees and awards, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Meacham calls Lewis as important to the founding of a modern and multi-ethnic 20th and 21st century America as Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and Samuel Adams were to the initial creation of the Republic itself in the 18th century. A believer in the injunction that one should love one's neighbor as oneself. Lewis was arguably a saint in our time, risking limb and life to bear witness for the powerless in the face of the powerful. In many ways he brought a still evolving nation closer to realizing its ideals. And his story offers inspiration and illumination for Americans today who are working for social and political change. Integral to Lewis's commitment to bettering the nation was his faith in humanity and in God, and an unshakable belief in the power of hope. About the author. Jon Meacham is a Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer, a contributing writer for the New York Times Book Review and a contributing editor of Time magazine. He is the author of the New York Times bestsellers. Meacham, who holds the Rogers Chair in the American Presidency at Vanderbilt University, lives in Nashville. The Washington Post says, "Praise for his truth is marching on, John Lewis and the Power of Hope. A valuable discussion of an extraordinary man who deserves our everlasting admiration and gratitude." Eric Foner, from the New York Times Book Review says, Meacham tells this story with his customary eloquence. A welcome reminder of the heroic sacrifices and remarkable achievements of those young radicals, 20th century America's greatest generation. San Francisco Chronicle says, Meacham talks directly to the reader, his eyes burning, his voice calm but quaking with emotion. Meacham takes the familiar story of the scars and bruises on John Lewis' body as literally an embodiment of the struggles of the civil rights era, and brings alive with cinematic conviction the backstory of how specifically those blows came about. Chapter 16 says, his truth is marching on combines careful reporting, historic photographs, and detailed notes and appendices. But the book ultimately shines brightest as a story of how one man made a difference by believing in justice and offering hope for a nation in difficult times. Top 7 famous quotes by John Lewis. Young people can understand, and must understand, that we had success, we had failures, but we never gave up. We never gave in. We never became bitter. We didn't hate. We continued to press on. And that's what we're saying. There are some ups, there are some downs, and when you're not down, you must have the capacity and the ability to get up and keep going. If you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to do something about it. I thought I was going to die a few times. On the Freedom Ride in the year 1961, when I was beaten at the Greyhound bus station in Montgomery, I thought I was going to die. On March 7, 1965, when I was hit in the head with a nightstick by a state trooper at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, I thought I was going to die. I thought I saw death, but nothing can make me question the philosophy of nonviolence. Nonviolence is one of those immutable principles that we cannot and must not deviate from. You cannot give up, you have to be persistent and keep pushing, and press on. Do not give up. Do not give in. Keep the faith. And keep your eyes on the prize. You have to have the capacity and the ability to take what people did, and how they did it, and forgive them and move on. Hi, we will be introducing to you all the interesting New York Times best-selling books in our series. If you like what we are doing, do not forget to hit the subscribe button and like button below and turn on the little alert bell.